All right, I'd like to welcome you to a Hometown Hero presentation we have today. We have a Vietnam veteran, helicopter pilot, my brother, Steve Peeples from Columbia, South Carolina. Grew up when I was 6 years old. Everybody remember first grade? When I was 6 years old, he went to Vietnam. He's about 12 years older than me. We were kind of raised as same parents, but two separate lifestyles. I was a single kid, and he was a single kid. So my mother, as we like to talk about, had a son in school for 12 years, you know, and then I came along and I was in school for 12 years. So imagine having a mom who had 24 years of children in schools. He went to Vietnam, did real well, at helicopter pilot. He'll talk to you about that. Came back. Steve does not like to brag, but I brag for him. He's a Bronze Star winner. Very proud of that. As well as our dad was a Bronze Star winner in World War II. And Steve's son, Reed, who you've probably heard me talk about, is in Afghanistan right now, serving his country. And Reed has already won a Bronze Star from a previous deployment. So there's not many generations you can see that type of lineage in their family. But Steve is here to talk about his life story and his experiences in Vietnam, his being a helicopter pilot. So let's welcome Steve Peeples.
Before I start talking, I've heard twice about wearing the uniforms and you know, how difficult it is. Let me just, this is to the men here. The women, I just, you know, kind of just phase out for a second. So I'm talking to the guys, all right? Life, learn lessons. There's not a whole lot. I know that, you know, it's not a lot. But what you also, you know, of women that are really attracted to women. But there is a percentage, there is a portion of women who really do like men in uniform. Okay? That does exist. And I wish I'd have known that when I'm sharing that with you, because I did not know that when I was coming up. And I had women that would tell me that, and I just kind of, you know, I did not realize it. About a year ago, I was coming back from Boy Scouts, and I was in my Boy Scout uniform, and I walked in, you know, I had to go to Walmart, and I walked into Walmart, and it was like one or two, like three women just treated me entirely different. If I had been in Walmart in my t-shirt and blue jeans, I don't think I would have gotten quite that same, you know, reception. So, yeah, you know, some people are going to harass you and everything, but just remember there might possibly be some people that really get turned on by uniforms. All right. So, grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, and kind of unusual in that I'm still living there, and my wife is still living there, and my wife's mother was baptized in the same church that my mother, her mother, was baptized around, you know, 1920 or something like that. Her mother and my mother were in the second grade together and graduated from high school, you know, same high school together, and we're still, you know, in that thing. Furthermore, I can remember where we grew up on Badger Road. It was like a 2-block strip, and so
Let me show them something here.
using technology to Badger Road. The entire time that I was there, and so which is like kindergarten through 12th grade time I left, there was not a house that ever went for sale. There was not a turnover at all. I guess the biggest event, there was one family had a divorce when the father left, and but you know, the wife and child, you know, remained. And then I think after I left, maybe there was somebody committed suicide. But other than that, there wasn't any changes. There was never, you know, for sale sign. That's pretty phenomenal.
This is a church, a Methodist church that Steve and I live next to. This is the high school that we went to, and I've told some of you guys I was literally across the street from high school. This is the home where actually we grew up in, and of course from a street view for Google Earth, you can sit here and look at how, you know, vegetated. It's a little different, I guess, from, you know, the way Prescott is. But this is the picture of our home, our childhood home, And actually, this back here on the back left is my basketball court that I played. But I mean, straight across the street from our high school. So just like if we lived across the street here, that's where we came from.
Okay, high school academics was pretty misery for me. I didn't particularly enjoy high school. I had some other things that I was interested in. And they ranged from reading a lot, and I'd still have a problem with reading, and it's an addiction. And I say an addiction is not necessarily positive, but I can remember as a kid, I would try to limit myself. I remember one space I was really interested in, like reading plays. And so I'd read one Tennessee Williams play a night. Sometimes I'd read two. And sometimes I'd read 3 plays a night, and so it'd be like 2 o'clock before getting to bed. And my grades, showed that I was interested in other things. My high school GPA was 1.8, and not real good. However, so I did a lot of reading and I had a lot of other interests, girls. I enjoyed working and Boy Scouts and did the Eagle Scout type thing. So other interests, but I enjoy taking tests. And to me, I hear people talking about test anxiety and everything else. To me, taking a test, I associate it with back then we had the pinball machines, and you were just I just like to try to run up the score, and so if I can make 10,000 or 20,000, whatever, I just like to try to see, what kind of a score I can make, run up the score. So, I like to run up scores on things like SAT. That's fun. I love taking tests. And so as a result of good tests, I was still able to get into a pretty good school. Guess what happened when I went to school? I immediately flunked out because I was more interested in things like ROTC and girls. And so I flunked out of college and got drafted, and which is kind of what I wanted to do. I was going to the military, and so I got drafted, and no problem. Hey, I'm gonna go to OCS and become an officer and be an infantryman and lead people in combat. This could be good. And so I came in, and I said, I'm going to OCS, and it's no, that just closed. And I says, what? Is it Friday? We closed OCS. You have to be a college graduate. And so I'm not going to be an officer. Okay. And we started taking tests. The test to see, if you will be bright enough to drive a Jeep or, whatever, what's your capability. And back then they had these new things that they were high technology, leading cutting edge. It's called Scantrons. And you fill out the Scantron and you take the test, and if you pass that test, they let you take another test. Hey, this is good, I love it. And so we went and took the first test, and they would call the people out, and those are the ones that flunked that first test. We know what they're going to do, welcome to the infantry. And so I'd go back and take another test. Started at 6 o'clock in the morning. At 10:30 at night, I started taking a thing called flight aptitude test. Finished that one at 2:30 in the morning. And I told you I like to take tests. I am getting a little bit tired. 2:30 in the morning, this is not quite as much fun as it used to be. That morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm standing in formation. And they're calling out the people, and we're chuckling. Yeah, man, there's 400 of us in the formation. And they called out, about 30 or 40, and they said, yeah, man, those are the ones that flunked that first test. And they finally ended up, there were only 2 of us out of the 400, standing there in formation. And they were asking us all these weird questions. I mean, weird. Like, have you ever been married? Have you ever fathered a child? Do you wear glasses? Or all this crazy stuff. And so I walked in there, and there were 2 sets of orders, all typed up and ready to go. And he says, okay, you got a choice. You're either going to West Point or you're going to flight school. And I said, I thought I was in the Army. He said, yeah, we need helicopter pilots. So you go to West Point or you go to flight school? Which is it? You know, you sign which one you want to sign. And I said, can I think about it? He says, yeah, sure. There's one guy right behind you. Just step out. And so they took the other guy in and probably gave him the same spiel. And so I came back in and I said, you know, I just flunked out of college. I don't want to go to college, so I guess I'm going to fly helicopters. And so that's how I ended up flying helicopters. There's a scene in MASH. Anybody ever watch MASH? Yeah. And so what is it? You know, Hot Lips, and giving one of the guys a fit, and she's just, you know, just chewing him out and everything else, and screaming at him. She says, "How did a person like you ever get to be an officer in this army?" You know. And he said, "I was drafted." You know. And so that was my story. Looking back on it, it's pretty incredible. This total profile of a pilot, and I didn't know it. Never crossed my mind. Never thought about it. But I would have been, my life would have been less fulfilling if I had not enjoyed flying at one time. So I got drafted right in the very height of the Vietnam conflict. And at a point where we had like 50,000 people over there at one time, and were losing and killing 1,000 people a week. I don't want to say 1,000 a week. One of the big magazines tried to put the photos of everybody that was being killed in that one week or 1 month, or it's pretty phenomenal. I said a week. I may be wrong. 300 a week, 1,000 a month. Huge number. Or being killed, continuous. That's when I was there. When I ended up with a unit, it's called Air Cavalry, and it was built kind of under the old cav, cavalry of the Wild Wild West. And we had 3 types of helicopters, and which I ended up flying all of them. One was a UH-1 called a Huey, and the UH-1 is about the size of a van, a delivery van, and could hold a dozen combat soldiers. However, the environment we were flying in and the weight and restrictions and everything else, probably half a dozen soldiers would be a good load for them. And you got them up here? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, the UH-1 was designed by the United States Medical Corps as an ambulance to carry 6 litter patients internally, and but we used it for a lot of different things. We'd have the door gunners off the side. Oh, let's see. Yeah, here, this is low. I like this. Bring it up this way. Yeah. So you can see the door gunners, hanging out with the M60, machine guns, and the troops getting ready for insertion. We like to have the flights pretty compact, so that from the time the first one landed to the last one landed, they were all right there together, get them on and get them out at the same time. The air cav unit, and I started off flying the UH-1s. What we would do, would find the bad guys and maybe want to get some prisoners, or maybe why would they want to look inside of caves? You know what you're going to find, or get some intelligence. So we'd insert the troops down. We had like 30 troops we could put on the ground and get prisoners, or more important, to get the dead pilots all out of the aircraft that had been shot down, and try to secure the crash site. And we did a heck of a lot of that too. And then we had gunships, UH-1 Cobra, which was an attack aircraft. Can you pull that up? Cobra is the equivalent to what is it today is the Apache, but the Cobra was a kind of the leading edge, and not everybody had that. Since we were in the worst of the worst, we were blessed. We were honored to have the latest, greatest killing equipment since we were getting killed and doing more killing than anybody else. We had the newest equipment. Cobra, the two pilots at Tandem, and what I would do, I was the co-pilot and I was the commander of this aircraft. I'd sit up front, and the guy up front, we didn't call him the co-pilot or anything. The thing we'd call him the bullet catcher. So when he was in a gun run and the people were shooting at him, the co-pilot would, the good bullet press catcher would catch the bullets before the pilot. Works out really great for the pilot. My job, there was a turret down here, and would fire about 6,000 rounds, probably more than that. So let's call it 6,000 rounds a minute with the turret. On the stores over here, we would have rockets. And the rockets, we had the latest, greatest invention, a thing called flechettes. And I mean, they honored us. They sent the factory rep to try out this thing. And it did take me a long time later. Why were we honored with this, like the factory rep the first day? Well, because we were shooting at and getting shot at every day. This machine gun was really neat, and it was great because that allowed us to give air support extremely close to ground troops. And we had troops on the ground. You just about always had a separation of grenade throwing distance. And bad guys don't like to get, up in your face where they're getting grenades thrown on them. So how far can you throw a grenade? 30 yards. That's a good chunk. And so that's about how much separation. And so if we could, and this is not always this easy, so if you had a stream, and if you could identify our forces over here, and you could see the stream, then anybody on this side of the stream was the bad guys. And that allowed us to, shoot, up and at within, or sometimes 10 yards. 10 yards would be like 30 feet. And that's not unusual. You could fire within 30 feet of friendlies if you could thoroughly define where your friendlies are, and you could give within 30 feet. Now that compares to some other things like Air Force. And there are B-52s, coming in. And when the B-52s, the B-52 there, let me tell you what, you do not want to be, a click is a kilometer, and a kilometer is over a half a mile. Half a mile is really pushing it. You'd rather be a full mile away when they drop, because, sometimes they're a little sloppy and, and dropping their 2,000-pound bombs, they miss by, half a mile, whatever. So, and we were doing it within 30 feet of our friendly troops. So we had the Cobras, the gunships, and then they had another one called we call them the Scouts. This is cavalry. And the Scouts are the Loaches. And we had another term for that, and we were known as the Targets, and for other folks to shoot at us. Can you get us a Loach OH-6? I can describe a Loach to you. I said the Huey was like a van, like a delivery van, anything you can put into a delivery van. Yes. And a Loach, great, good pictures, is more like a Miata. I mean, it's teensy. It's really, really, really small. And let's see which one. Okay. Doesn't matter. Just pick one, whatever one you want. Good. It's extremely small. You could sit in the left-hand seat, and you put your hand way out, you could put it out in the wind, coming from the right. So really, really close. The pilot sit on the left-hand seat. The didn't have a co-pilot, a observer, an enlisted person, and the observer, and that's pretty accurate what he was supposed to be doing. The observer, he had probably a .60 caliber machine gun, hanging out there. And with the scouts, we always flew at least within 10 feet of hitting something at all times. When I say treetop, it's not accurate. Treetop and below treetop. And we could track and see, like the scouts of, out west and everything else. You were looking, at 100 feet. Exactly the opposite. The B-52, I think their operational altitude, they would drop down and risk. They wouldn't always come in at, 30,000 feet. Sometimes they'd drop down to 20,000 feet, really go into the combat zone, We were at 10 feet, and I'll tell you more, about that. So I started off flying the Hueys, and had some exciting times. Pulling people out of extractions. They would just call us in when things were really nasty and bad. It was kind of I think thinking back about it, if we were coming in and we were landing, and we'd get some, we're landing to the west. Okay, and we're coming into the west, landing to the west, and the bad guys are shooting from the north. And you think about this, we're landing to the west, the bad guys from the north, and I'm this time maybe sitting on the left side of the aircraft. It's like, hey, I don't have to worry about it because they're not even shooting on my side of the aircraft. So this is going to be this is going to be an easy one coming in. Or of course, if I was sitting on the right side, oh my gosh, they're shooting. Every one of them shooting right at me, not at the aircraft. They're shooting at me. I have landed the aircraft. I've come in. I've got one vivid memory of when I, found the LZ, the landing zone that I'm coming into, and I'm probably about a couple of hundred feet out, looking down and seeing the sand being churned up and the dust being created by all the bullets that are impacting exactly the place that I'm gonna land. The point where I'm having to land. It is just as dusty. You've ever seen a rifle range, with a bunch of automatic, weapons fire, and the churning and that dust, and that is the point that I'm landing. And I've landed, and I remember landing, and our troops are great. These are people that we work with every day and everything else, and we're there to pull them out and take them home. And they have enough sense they can't stand up to get into their taxi to get their free ride home because they're pinned down. And they're waiting for the fire to stop in order to get up and get in the aircraft. And I'm sitting up here, looking down at them, screaming at them to get into the aircraft while the whole world gets blown up around us. So, some exciting times with the helicopters, with that. And my roommate that I was flying with got the first Cobra gunship. He was a gunship pilot that had an air conditioner. Oh man, this sounds pretty great. And so I said, I think I want to be a Cobra pilot, get to fly in an air-conditioned aircraft. And so I went and did that for about 2 months. And this is kind of hard for me to believe now. Incredible. And I've heard other people talk the same thing. I only did it for 2 months and I kind of bailed out of it. And why? Because it's too boring. And what the life of a Cobra pilot was that you did circles, left-hand circles. I always did circles until somebody found a target. And they would throw out smoke and they'd say, okay, blow up that target, 20 meters to the west of the smoke. And you'd roll in with the guns and you throw in a bunch of rockets and you blow up the whole world. And you go up and you do left-hand circles. And a really, really good day, somebody would go down and they would count bodies. and you'd come back to the officers club, hey man, I got 3 kills today, it was a great day. You know, but you just essentially did circles in the sky. Now I had some other, you know, times in there. This is War II. There I was. It was a bad day for me in the Cobra, you know, because I said the only thing I did was play with a minigun, and the minigun was broken, the hydraulics on it, and so I couldn't shoot it, and so all I could do was just sit there and watch the world. And we had a really bad day, and we had another Cobra that got shot down, and we put people on the ground, and things went really, really bad, really bad, and stepped into a mess. And so, but you know, there's nothing for me to do, and we are getting ready to go into a gun run at about like 1,000 feet. And when you're starting in the gun run, we don't have much airspeed. So 1,000 feet, you know, like 50 knots. And you continue that gun run down, and by the end of the gun run, you're doing, you know, 120 knots before you break off a couple hundred feet over the ground. So we just kind of whopping around, just getting ready to go in the gun run. And I had no idea, but I just, with all this stuff going down in front of me, but I just kind of looked out the right window, you know, looked out the canopy, you know, to the right. And I looked out, and just, you know, right here was like a softball. And this softball was white, kind of white softball. This is really interesting. I started watching. And the softball grew, it's about like the size of a basketball. And so I'm sitting here watching, got my attention here. And then the basketball kind of collapsed, and it turned black. You know, it kind of came back out again. And then there were splinters that came off from the basketball. And then very slowly it kind of, you know, drifted off towards the back of the aircraft. And my mind started, you know, and just, you know, it started black. Yeah, you know what's flak? Anybody know what is flak? Anti-aircraft, yeah. Airburst. And flak is what they shoot down, you know, B-52s at, you know, 20,000 or 40,000 feet. You light up the sky with this flak, and hopefully when I'm on, you know, hit the aircraft up there. The flak, you're not supposed to be using that type of weapon at 1,000 feet. You know, and it's kind of like they're cheating. You know, they got so much stuff down there, they're cheating. They're supposed to shoot me with small arms fire, maybe a 50 caliber, but not flak. I mean, this is not, you know, not good. About 2 years later, I actually found out the rest of the story about that. And I, in my mind, again, this was something that could not have happened. And I talked to a person, expert of the museum in Las Vegas, and told him, you know, my story, and he said, was there any other flak? Did you see multiple? And I said, never thought. No, it was just the one. It's not like, you know, the sky lit up. And he says, okay, I know what it is. And it came from a gun that was last produced in 1940, before World War II, by Russia. Same quality equipment now, you know, prior to World War II in Russia, and that they had given away, you know, to the Vietnamese. And it was how ancient it was. It was a single shot black, you know, equipment. And so that's why there was only the one bullet. And then I said, but these things are designed to go like, you know, 20,000, 30,000 feet where the big guys fly. And why are they shooting it? You know, how did they manage to do it? He said, oh, the GIs did some unauthorized modification. And they took a knife, they did a score on the bullet, and so that the bullet would explode right after it went out the barrel. And that's what happened. So, all right, I flew the Cobras, and it was boring. And then the Loaches, the observation. And our job of the cavalry was to find the bad guys. Our job was not to attack or defend. Our job was to find the bad guys. And how do you find the bad guys? You send out the scouts, right? And remember the scouts, the name was Target. And as a result, we had an incredible mortality rate. In the pilot side, we were theoretically supposed to have 8 pilots. And the idea was to send out 4 pilots every day. You would send out, 4 pilots, 4 aircraft in teams of 2. So you would have 1 team, 2 out there flying. They would expend ammunition, whatever, come back, refuel, and you'd have the other team out there. So you could keep, people out there all the time, refuel back out. And you did a little tag team, type thing. We never had 8 pilots. Usually had 6, very often 5 or 4, because if things were going good and we did not have bad times, and I can tell you about bad times, we would usually have 1 killed every month. Can you imagine 4 or 5 of your best buddies? I mean, this is a close-knit group. 5 of your best buddies, look around, if everything's going good, you're going to have somebody who's going to get killed every month. There were times when we had it a lot worse than that, and we could almost approach 1 a day for a week or so. Those were really bad times. There was a day that Fred Fleury got shot down, and Fred Fleury was memorable for a couple of added things. One, he got a hill named after him. He got shot down at a really, really bad place to get shot down and killed. And Fred Fleury was married and had about 4 children. And somehow that made it worse. He had 4 children. And the theory was, look, we're getting all these people killed. Why not we just let the bachelors get killed, because they don't have to worry about leaving a wife behind and children. I disagreed really strongly with that. I felt like somebody else had the joy of being married and producing children. Then, hey, I haven't had a chance to have all those experiences. But anyhow, the feeling was, let's just use the bachelors because they're kind of more expendable. So when Fred Fleury, got shot down, they were looking for volunteers to fly, and I did. I went into Logan. And by the way, I didn't know how to fly this aircraft. And how do you learn to transition to fly this aircraft? I can't believe it. They had an instructor pilot, came out, cranked up the aircraft, showed us how, here's the checklist, here's how you go, here's how you crank it up. You got it up and running, and said, go out and you get your 10 hours of solo time and come back and give you a check ride. And that's what we did. I had a friend of mine at the same time that had just come over to Vietnam, and he, did not have the experience I did, and they, new guy in there, and so, we need another loach pilot. So we, started getting our solo time, together, flying our time there. And got our time there, and then, I told you the little observation aircraft, we had a observer, go gun. So they would take the new pilot and put him there as an observer, and you'd go out and do that for a little while. And then they put you in the left seat, and then you were a pilot, and very shortly, that's it. And then we get a very experienced observer, somebody that really knew what they're doing, an old enlisted guy that was still alive, and that's it. And you go out and see how long you last.
We got about 7 minutes, Steve.
Okay. Okay. Let me tell you my biggest war tale. You ready?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Biggest war tale. You're not gonna believe this. I can tell you one day I know, and I think about it all the time. I don't know if I was shot at 12,000 times or 36,000. Let's call it conservative 12,000. I don't think that's accurate. 24,000 times in 1 hour, and I can thoroughly document that. The volume of fire that I received, that I thought they were shooting at other people, and then I found out there was nobody else, and anybody was up. There was nobody. I was the only person to receive fire. I thought there was a fire. I thought we had platoons and companies shooting out, and this huge roar. And then I found out our guys were way over here, and who were these people? All that was coming at me. That was one light, one D, one, mission. I know that I was shot at 200 days out of the year, at least. A big brag to come back to Officers Club. I mean, this is sight. You could, something you want to show. I don't think I was shot at today. Are you serious? Nobody's right. That's pretty big. So, all that. So I'm seeing the bullets go through the aircraft in front of me and everything. Never received a hit. Not a bullet ever came through the aircraft I was in. I told a friend of mine at a reunion that, and he looked at me in the eye and says, "You're lying." And he came back 3 days later and says, "Let me make sure that you were over there. You were flying. I've got you confused." And I said, "Yeah. Never." He said he felt like he had not done a day's work if he had not taken a hit. Incidentally, he had 3 people killed on his aircraft. I said, back to something you'd really want to share. This is pretty exciting, that if you didn't get shot at today, and how many times a person would just talk about that, and then 10 minutes later, the enlisted people come in really upset that he had not written up those bullet holes in his aircraft, and they just find, why didn't you write up this combat damage? You didn't check your aircraft. Well, I didn't think I got shot at. So that was my biggest war today. Questions? Let's do a question. Come on. Yeah.
Were you ever in a helicopter that stopped working?
Yeah. When I was in the National Guard, I was flying and didn't know, it sounded like the door was flapping. It was some kind of noise, something strange, and it wasn't the door flapping. I had reasons to believe that, but something was not right, and we kind of decided we needed to be landing, and the engine quit. The engine was backfiring, and the engine quit, and I made the most incredible, beautiful textbook landing. The co-pilot thought I had turned the engine off, thought I had, rolled it off on purpose. The guy in the back seat just knew that things were really quiet. It was quiet up here. So one time out of, 5,000 hours or whatever.
What years were you in Vietnam?
69, essentially. 69. Right at the height. They were starting to wind things down when I pulled out.
At those times, you left for almost exactly a year.
Yeah, it was 1 year tour. Yeah.
What was your favorite thing at flight school?
I just enjoyed flying. I had the profile of flying. I did not know, it's just, still in it. I had major, I use the word addiction again, withdrawal when I got out of flying and had to use some of that tendencies to, motorcycle, whitewater, kayaking, the thrill-seeking adventures there, but no, thoroughly, and I'm still in, So I don't fly now because I missed it so much when I was trying to stop.
Have you ever been shot at by your friendlies?
No. No, nothing that, what y'all haven't asked, nobody's asked, have I ever killed anybody? Sure. And the 19 that I know about, and 19, we're talking about face-to-face, eye-to-eye. Usually, I was using a minigun on the aircraft, and our typical one was like 100 feet. And at 100, so I'm closer. But at 100 feet, you have the expression. And the expression most of the time was, I don't know why, surprise. I don't know why, just that last second before they die, they just really, surprised. It's right. Well, one time to, maybe anger, then the question is, so I had 19, and of course you kill the person there and then you spread the bullet around, you wipe out the bushes, and I feel like this ain't the only guy out there, kind of juggle it around, so I don't know. Yeah?
Did you ever get shot at by SAMs?
By what?
Surface-to-air missiles?
I'm sorry, man.
Surface-to-air missiles?
Surface-to-air missiles, no. They really didn't have much, that sophisticated things. We had people that would get killed, like in a landing zone, and they would drop in mortars, or you could hang, grenades up from a wire. Obviously this is a good place to land a helicopter, and you could, kind of reach stuff like that. But no, we didn't have any surface. air missiles. And incidentally, they don't work really good against helicopters. We're training some troops with the red-eye missiles or whatever. And for them to work, a couple things. One, they had to turn it on and power it up because your battery's not going to last very long, so they had to power it up. And that takes about 45 seconds. And then you have to acquire, that takes about 10 seconds. And by that time, the helicopter's right on the feet. You're not going to be,
Guys, let's keep going past the transition period. Keep asking questions, and then I'll move you guys over to the ROTC here in a few minutes. But keep asking questions. Go ahead.
Did you ever regret becoming a helicopter pilot?
Oh, no. I think helicopter pilot was so much better than wasting my time with fixed wing, stuff there. Because there were so many different things I could do. And in the morning, I could do low level down in a creek bed, and I could do practice my rescue horse, with a medevac, and do, rescue horse hovering, the lake. And I've done this, do that in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I could fly instruments in the clouds into Atlanta International Airport, largest, busiest airport in the world, with a big voice, and go in and, fly in the clouds. And that was my specialty, was instrument flying.
What kind of advice in high school did you wish that you got or you should have followed? You're talking to a bunch of high school kids just like you. So what were your reflections on high school or earlier young adulthood that you could have learned from?
Yeah, chicks, big men in uniform. I guess back then I did not realize how this sounds bad, powerful I am. In that, when I say I'm powerful, that I get an objective and something that's important to me and something I really want to do and I really want to accomplish. It's kind of scary that I can make it happen if I want to, and I did not know that back then. I learned later that I could do that for helping other people. And so I found somebody and I found a need and I really wanted to help this person. This is something really significant. And I could help them. And then it was much later that I realized, you know what? I can do that for myself. And when I was going there, my first time I did that, I said, I want to pick something I can do for myself. And what would be fun? And I saw a F-16, land, F-16 fighter. I said, I'd like to fly that. That would be fun. What would I be fun to fly? It did not take 2 months, less than 2 months later, I was flying the F-16. And it was they call it the dollar ride, But 2 months later I was flying, and that was, golly, man, I can really, I don't have to do it for somebody else. That's wonderful, but I can also do it for myself. If I want to go to med school, you go to med school. Piece of cake, nothing to do. All right.
Any other questions? We've got a few minutes. We're trying to get everybody up. Heatherton, you got one?
Did you ever not want to go fly? Wake up and I don't want to go out there today?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, sure. And there were some missions and some days, for example, we would fly for 8 hours without shutting down the aircraft. And so we would land and one pilot would get out to reserve the fuel, the other one would stay in and fly for another 4 hours, and you swap. 2 hours, we had 2 hours fuel endurance. And so you would get out, and after flying for 4 hours, you could not stand up. It was really embarrassing. Your legs would not work. And you learned to hold on to the aircraft so that you wouldn't embarrass yourself by flopping down in the mud, and everything else. And so I guarantee you, and you got, when I say 8 hours or 12 hours, I've done 12-hour days too. Flying a helicopter is twice as fatiguing as doing any kind of flying a plane might be 1.5 hours fatiguing. So if you flew a helicopter for 4 hours in a day, you've done a full day's work. Yeah, after that, it's you're right. I'm a massage therapist, and when I do the 5th client at the end of the day, it ain't particularly as much fun as doing 1 or 2 today. Yeah.
What was your favorite helicopter that you flew?
Oh, definitely the Loach observation, the Miata. Yeah. And I think most people like kind of flying the single pilot, aircraft. You don't have to coordinate with a crew of 4.
What was the largest threat you ever faced when you were over in Vietnam?
What was the largest
Threat.
Lord have mercy. It was every day, and the challenge was, you went through these horrible, miserable days, and then you had to get up tomorrow and do it again. It's not like you have 9/11 and the towers come collapsing down, and somehow a miracle you managed to live, but then, hey, tomorrow, let's get through let's see if we can do this again tomorrow. So no, it's every day. People ask, what did I do for fun? What was the fun part? And I never have come up with a good answer to that, because it's not much fun.
I don't think you ever mentioned how long you were ever in the military. How long were you in the military?
Well, I was in the middle. I was active duty for 3.5 years, a little over 3.5, and then total of maybe, let's call it 28 years actually flying, on a semi-regular basis.
Tell them what you did, where you did it. They don't know about the Guard.
Huh?
If they don't know about the Guards.
Okay, National Guard. The National Guard, you have the same requirements as active duty, no different. It's not like your National Guard, you don't have to meet these requirements. You have the same requirements. As I flew the National Guard, it's not even theory. The idea is 1 week in a month, not even close. We would always go out there on a Friday night and get in a 4-hour, flying on Friday night, fly the weekend of the National Guard, and then, you'd have to go down to, Savannah, another town to get clearance with flying in a synthetic trainer to get the instrument certification, and then you get all of these additional requirements. So it would be part-time, 1 weekend a month. In reality, would very often be 4 days a week. And then they opened up on Tuesday night, and you'd come in from flying at about Tuesday night, maybe get in at 1 o'clock in the morning, and hey, you gotta be at school at 1 o'clock in the morning, right? And
So the National Guard is not full-time, it's a part-time thing, just like the Air Force Reserve. The National Guard, you work for the governor. Arizona's has an Army National Guard as well as the Air Force National Guard. So Steve chose to work for the governor of South Carolina, part-time, which means if there's a big war, you can be called up. But that's how he ended up spending his time after the active duty Army in Vietnam.
Ended up my last 10 years in the National Guard, I was flying medevac, and I thoroughly enjoyed medevac. That was wonderful because you didn't pretend. You're not pretending to blow up tanks or you're pretending to, to fight a war. That guy in the back seat has had anaphylactic shock, got a bee sting, he's having trouble breathing, or the Jeep turned over and his head's crushed, he's got intracranial pressure, and it's for real, it's no pretending. And so I thoroughly enjoyed flying the medevac missions and, the rescue horse and all that. That was great.
Did you ever do any air shows?
Air shows, no. We did a lot of the show and tell, the static display. You come to high school and park in the middle of a football stadium, and how high would that plane go? That type of stuff.
All righty, well, let's wrap it up.